Howdy, Beefalo Bart here, and welcome. Quick recap. Last video was basic training the anatomy of Unreal Engine 4 editor, and where we left off, we had added in a third-person blueprint and third-person system to where we can have a character, we can walk around, we can interface with the world by walking around, climbing things, jumping off things, and so forth, and that's where we are. I do recommend that if you did not watch the first video of these, go back and watch it. It is a necessary item, something you need to learn, and things you need to know about the editor in general. But this was going to be about BSP geometries, and I have to confess, I'm a nerd. I'm a fat, lonely nerd that's old and decrepit and sickly. Okay, whatever. I like screwing around with BSP geometries because, you know, like these items right here are cool. You've got these to work with. If you want to place these in, if you want to add another set of stairs in, you've got the basic geometries. You click on third person and meshes. You get the ones that are here in this map are right here. And you even got a material to work with as well. Alright, I mean, that's kind of cool. You got, you know, some interesting shapes to work with, but let's make our own shapes. So to get prepared for that, we're going to go to our content folder, and I'm going to create a new folder called Assets. And inside there, I'm going to go ahead and create a folder called Meshes. And because we want some more materials, I'm going to go ahead and do something I don't normally do, and I'm going to go to Add New, Add Feature or Content Pack, go to Content Packs, select Starter Content, and I'm going to Add to Project. Now, what that is going to give us, and it's already done, as far as you guys want me to take them. Because I do like to help a lot of people, but then again, I want people that I'm helping to grab the basics and understand what's going on. I see a lot of people who quickly just want to reach out and say, oh, I look at the marketplace and I found this asset and it costs this number of dollars and it does all these cool things. Okay, this looks awesome. I would own that. Oh, that's cool. And well, this is awesome. Well, that is definitely awesome. I like that. It's too, wow, that is cool. It's so easy to get wrapped up in the ooh shinies. I'm like, yeah, I would totally own that right there. But I don't need it. So easy to get caught up in the ooh shinies of all these lovely asset packs. And am I saying don't buy them? No, I'm not saying don't buy them. I'm just saying until you get a good grasp of the editor itself, don't go out spending money on things if you don't know how to use them. The starter pack. Okay, it's going to give us our architecture here. And I'm not even going to use this map to work with. I'm just going to show you that you've got a floor section, which is 400 by 400. You've got pillars, platforms, wall sections. The ones that I will use, I'll stick with the 400 by 400, just simply because they match up with, you know, what I want to do. It would have been so much nicer if they were 500 by 500, but okay. So I have already got our first map, which was the test map. And, you know, this is the one that was created when we first created a project. But if we want to, we can go ahead and create another new map just to show the basics of, go ahead and make a new map. Well, just click on File in the upper left-hand corner and select New Level. We have three options. Empty level has nothing. It is just empty space. VR Basic is absolutely fantastic. I use it for testing things like shooting or AI movement or things like that. It's pretty cool. Default is if you're going to build an actual, you know, world. You got a sky, sun, all the things you need to get started with. So I'm going to do that, but the first thing I'm going to do is take this, the sphere reflection capture. I don't want it in here, so I delete it. I grab this guy, and I'm going to control left click this guy, and I'm just going to drag them underneath here so I don't have to look at them. Okay, and again, I'm going to go ahead and select my untitled, create folder and map stuff. Most of the time I call it map shed, but I'm going to grab everything in here by shift left clicking from here to here and drag that up into the map stuff folder, minimize it, close it. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I don't want this floor. It's okay, but I don't want it. A key thing to remember, this is a BSP style mesh without any materials applied to it. You want to keep this as your floor because I'm going to use this map as what I call my construction map. So I don't actually want this. I'm going to go ahead and delete it. I'm going to left click on it in the map and hit the delete key and get rid of it. Now I have no floor. If I try to play, it's not going to work because first off, I didn't set my game mode yet, which I want to select game mode override in the world settings and select third person game mode. Make sure it's using my player base. I'm going to go ahead and save it now, even though I'm not ready for it to be saved. And I'm going to call this my construction. So it's my construction map. Now I'm going to go to geometry, and this is where our BSP geometries are located. I'm going to drag a box into the world and go to my details panel, which is here, and hit 0 tab 0 tab -10. I'll show you why -10 here in just a minute. Now the normal reflex is you want to transform this into your floor, is to go over here and use these transform tools. They have their uses, but not with BSP geometries right now. You don't want to edit your BSP geometry. Forget these three things here even exist in a BSP geometry. You want to change the size of this in your brush settings of your details panel. So if you look in the lower left hand corner of your view panel, which is this big area where our map is, you can see you have an X, a Y, and a Z, and the X is going to be going away from us, our Y is going to be going this way, Z is up and down, and as you're panning around your map, that little compass changes direction also. So you always know which way is your X direction. So I'm going to change my X and my Y, which is going to be the overall size. I'm going to change that to 10,000. It's kind of big. Hit tab, and I'm going to hit 10,000 again. And I'm going to change the Z to 10. Hence -10 up here. So now we have a nice big platform we can work on. So if we hit play now, we can actually stand on a world and don't have to worry about falling through. We can walk around. Hit escape. Now our player start. Now what we created was a box brush, and again WASD while I'm holding down the right mouse button to fly around like this. The box brush, I'm going to left click on it, and I can left click on it again, and I can now change the name, and I'm going to call this our floor, and I'm going to throw this back in our map stuff folder, and I'm going to click on my player start. He's in 00112. That's normal, but I'm going to drag him away from the 00 location just so I can have a place to work with. I want to move him back to -2000, and then whenever I hit play, that way I'm not standing at 000. Now I'm going to hit escape, and I'm going to save all, so I save my map again. Now we're ready to start building things. And why I say I like BSP geometries is because you can make your own scene objects and turn them into static meshes, add collisions to them, and do funky cool things with them. Like say a box, you drag this into your map. When you're building things, get used to doing 0, 0, and I'll leave the 100 in there for now, because a default box, you notice the floor is a BSP geometry. You have these big gray blocks and light gray blocks. The big ones are going to be 100 units by 100 units. So we can use this floor with no material applied to it as a ruler for our BSP geometries. So how big is the player? So if we come in here and if we look, approximately a 100 wide by 200 tall is going to be the dimensions that our player needs to be able to navigate through. So now we can see by doing this that 100 by 100 is a good rule of thumb. So now hit escape, and I want to select this BSP geometry, but I'm going to do it from in here so that I have this information. Because if I click here, it's going to click on this face, and it's not going to let me see anything but information related to that face only. The face is the side. I want to select it in here so that I have the entire BSP geometry. Now, again, like we did with our floor, we can control the size of our box or our BSP geometry with the brush settings. I want to change this to 100. I'm going to hit tab, do 100, and I'm going to leave 200 for my height. Now, if we hit play and walk over to it, we can see that it is approximately the size of our player. What do we have? We have, hit escape, we can float around and look at it. This will symbolize the size of our player. So I can actually click on this, and we're going to use this as our first static mesh, or we can leave it as a BSP geometry. But I'm going to leave it as a BSP geometry for right now, and I'm just going to say, okay, I'm going to rename this as my player peg. So now, if I want to get an idea, is my door big enough? I can drag this in here and move it wherever I need to move it with this part of the transform tools so that I can see, is my door big enough for me to fit through. So I can use that and as a player peg or an idea. So I actually don't want it for right now, so I'm going to delete it. But that's a good way of doing that. But as you see, when I drag these in here, they have no materials to them. That's fine. I'll show you how to fix that later on too. You got a cone. You drag a cone in here. And again, for practical use, I'm going to zero it out. The zero of this one is floor level. So you can pick it up, you can rotate it, but don't use that scale on BSP geometries. You can rotate it around. You can see how much you've rotated it by looking at here and here. You can manually enter numbers by clicking that box, and let's put it at 45 degrees, or we want it to go the other way, so negative 45, and there we go. By default, when you put a BSP geometry into the map this way, it has collision based on the dimensions of the BSP geometry. So that's cool. So instead of deleting it, I could have just reset the parameters. But now with that, we can actually go in here and change the Z height. Let's make it 500, which made it taller. Z is for our elevation. Our outer radius, let's make this 250. So that's our outer radius of the bell end of our cone. And the number of sides, let's make that, let's go 20. The more sides, the more it looks like a cone. The less sides, well, the less like a cone is going to look like. Now it looks like a pyramid. But you can see the material that's on here is still in the 100 by 100 grid. I'll show you why that's important here in a little bit. Same thing with a cylinder. You can drag that into your scene, and now the rotation point, or the rotation point is something to remember, is actually set in the middle. See, this is 200 units high, so in between here, in the dead center of the circle, or the top of it, is your pivot point. So if you try to rotate it, you have to remember that that's your pivot point. So let's actually leave it on its side like this. And now I can click and rotate, but you have to think about it like this. When you first created it, Z is always going to be this way now because you rotated it sideways. If you want to undo all your rotations on it, you can just 0, 0, and 0 and take it back to normal, because Z is always going to be up and down this way. Even if you rotate it, that Z is going to stay the same. So let's actually change our Z to 100, which makes now, if our Z height is 100 and the bottom of our thing is now going to be halfway up, but we want this to sit on the ground, then we need to change this number right here and this number to be this number needs to be half of your Z height. So now it's going to sit perfectly on the ground. So if we say we want it instead to be 50, then we need to change this number to half of that, which is 25, so it sits on the ground. So you can see now we have that, and we have some other options we can play with that I didn't mention before, is additive and subtractive. I'll show you why that's important here in just a moment. You can actually change what it is by there, but don't want to do that right now. Outer radius, let's change it to 300, so that makes it bigger on the outside diameter. Again, the number of sides is the number of sides on your cylinder, and you have a hollow button. I just clicked hollow, and that made it a donut. Cool. That's going to have its purposes later on as well, but by doing hollow, now you get the outside diameter, but you also have an inner radius. We changed that to 80, and it made it a really, really thin wall. So now we just made a ring that if we wanted to, we could actually rotate it to stand it up on its side by 90 degrees, raise it up, and we now have a ring that we can walk through. So if you're making a tunnel and you wanted to start off with something like that, then you select your cylinder brush here. We want to change our Z height is now going to be the length of it. So if we change that to 500, makes it longer. We can make it into 550,000 and make it really long. So if you want to make a tunnel, that's a quick and dirty way of making a tunnel. You also have curved stairs, and as it is, it's a set of stairs that are curved. And you can change the number of steps, or you can click here and make it turn the other direction. So the inner radius, if we change that, it changes it to a wider radius here based on this point from here to here. The step height, well, we can change that to 50. It makes the height of the steps taller, but just a quick note, if we do that, our player won't be able to smoothly walk up and down the stairs because the stairs are too high. So the thing you have to remember with that, step height, I think 30 is about as high as your player can walk up and down on. So I wouldn't go much higher than 30 if you do, but always test it to make sure. But the default, I believe, was 20 on the step height. Now, just same you have step width. You can change that from 200 to 50 to make it really narrow, or you can make it into even wider. Angle of curve, well, it's 90 degrees from here to here. What if I want to increase that? And I can just keep bringing that around, and you can bring that all the way up to 360. So you've got a full 360 degree turn on your stairs. Number of steps, I'm actually going to bring that up to back down to 180, so it's a C-shaped set of stairs. Number of steps, I can change that to 20, and it just increased the number of stairs that we have, but it also made it shallower. So if you wanted to, then you could increase your step height, and that's going to raise your overall height. So play around with it, and you can come up with all kind of cool uses for those. And again, you can just reverse the direction of it, so you can have a matching pair side by side. And here's another thing you can do. I have this one selected. I can hit Control C and then Control V to copy and paste. Then I'm going to click that, and now I've just made an opposing set of stairs. And if I have both of them selected, now I can change the value of both of them at the same time. Angle, let's change it to 120 so it doesn't go all the way around. And then you can change any of the dimensions you want, and it changes both of them at the same time. So I can also select both of them again and delete them. Then you've got linear stairs. Drop those into your map, and well, it's just a straight set of stairs. If you want to add more steps, and it makes it taller. Again, you can change the width, make it 500 if you want. You can change the stair height. You can make the stairs longer. You can change all kind of different things inside there for creating some cool stairs. And I'll show you in a little bit how to make a set of floating stairs. So your stairs, instead of being solid over here, it'll look like it's just a free set of stairs hanging in the air. Super easy, fun to play with. Spiral staircase is a full 360-degree spiral that goes up. It's the same basic concept as curved stairs. You can change all the different things like the inner radius to make it bigger. So you can actually create a cylinder. This is an example. And let's grab our spiral stairs, 0, 0, and then let's grab our cylinder brush. The reason why I use 0, 0, 0 is it's easy to remember, and you can post that in there. And let's set our spiral staircase to inner radius of 400. Our cylinder brush, our outer radius to 800. We'll change that here in just a minute. Make it hollow. Now we can know that we've got our outer radius is 400 here. So if we do 400 for our inner radius, I'm sorry, I had it at 600. So let's actually go back to our spiral stairs. And inner radius, that's only going to show our inner but not our outer. So that's 600 if you combine the two together. So our inner radius will be 600. And if we notice how many steps that we have, we can increase the number of sides on our thing here until it matches. And worst case scenario, you can count. But you match your flats of your inner radius to the flats of here. I don't know how many we actually have, but you'd match it up to that, and you can actually make your spiral staircase actually go around the inside of your tower section here you just created. So if this is like that, you can have a spiral staircase. And if you want to make sure that they're okay, well, our Z here, we need to make that 400, so that's sitting on the ground. If you wanted to do more of your spiral stair brushes or stairs to keep going up, Control C, Control V to copy and paste, and then just raise it up. So you can take a look, go inside, and get your height just right and match it up. And you could sit here and build a spiral staircase that'll go all the way to the top of your tower. And then you can create your own little custom tower. Awesome stuff. Sphere. It are a ball. You can do the tessellation, which is going to increase the amount of sides that it has to look more like a ball. If you want a perfect ball, then just use a basic sphere. It's going to be perfectly round and look smooth. But in most cases, we want to stick with BSP geometries for things, and that's how we can work with it. So we're going to go ahead and start making some useful stuff. Now, again, in our starter content, we had all these basic architectures. So technically, if you're prototyping a map or just building a map in general, you can come in here and throw on a floor section. Now, when I throw it in here, its top is going to be, or its pivot point is going to be right there. So you can see if we zero it out and just leave it to where it is, but I'll go ahead and 0, 0 the location. The pivot for it is in one corner, and it's just a hair above the ground level, and that's fine. So if we wanted to use these things, we could do that. Control C, Control V, hit our rotate, and then now make an extra copy of it. Control click on both of them, Control C, Control V, and then there, we just made that. You can drag in your wall sections, doors, windows, walls, whatever you need. But let's do all this with BSP Geometries. Make it all custom so we can have our own custom static meshes. So I'm actually going to go ahead and start with a BSP geometry. Again, if I drag it into the scene here, it's not going to have any materials on it, and it's just going to be plain just like everything else. And that's fine. And if we decide later we want to start putting materials on here, and we have materials inside of our starter content, so if I want to give this thing, well, I don't see how I can do that. So you have to click on a face. You see surface material. Let's add brick to it. And then click right there, and now we have brick. But that only applies it to that one side. What if I want it on all the sides of it? I can go right here, geometry, select all adjacent surfaces, and now I click on the material that I want. Since I already have one on one of them, I click display to materials, and on this one right here, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now if I click off of it and click back on it, we know that all of our materials on all the sides of it are going to be that brick material. What if it's crooked and you want this pattern right here on the top? I'm going to select this surface. What if I want the bricks to go this way? Well, I can come over here and rotate 90 degrees. So I can rotate my materials around. Now, here's what happens if you try to use this transform to change your scale. What's going to happen is, okay, well, I can size it however I want to. Oh, but look what happened to the materials. The material got stretched. Well, that sucks. I don't want to do that. I want to make it bigger, but I don't want to screw up the material. So if you come back over here, select your box brush, go back to your brush settings, and if you are set at 0, 0, then it's going to put it right here. You can follow this grid. I want this to be 600 wide, or I want it to go from here to here, or you get an idea of where you want your size to be. So I'm going to add 200 for each way. So that's going to make this 400 in the y-axis because it's this way. So now I can change it here to 600, and now the material did not get stretched, but it looks appropriate for my actual box. A note to remember, it reset the orientation of my material there. It does that sometimes. If I want to change the height, I change the Z value. Let's change it to 400, but now it's sticking to the ground, so we need to make this number for my location half of my Z, so that's going to be 200, which brings it right back on ground level again. So if we're actually building a wall or the beginnings of a house, I want to build a foundation to my house. So I actually want this to be a different material. I'm going to select the concrete tiles. I'm going to select this, and then I'm, instead of having to reshape all of this, I'm just going to delete the whole damn thing. So I'm going to start off with selecting the material now that I want it to be. Okay, and now I'm going to grab my box collision, drag it into the map, and it already has the material applied to all four sides. I'm going to zero it out. I want this to be, well, if I look at my character walking around on the map, I want my floor to be, let's say about 1,000 this way. So this would be 1,000 in the X, but this way I want it to be about 2,000. So that's the rough size that I want. So I'm going to click on my box, and I'm going to change the name of it to foundation. So I said I wanted it to be about 2,000 or 1,000 deep and 2,000 wide. Not 20,000, but 2,000. And let's make it a height of, let's make it 10. So we need to make that half, so that's going to be 5. So now it's sitting on the ground. And let's take a look at the footprint of our house. It's kind of small, but it'll be good enough to get us a starter house going. So now we have the foundation for our house, and we want to start adding some walls and things like that. Now there's an alternative we can do if we're making a house and we wanted this to be the actual house. Instead, let's go ahead and delete this for now. And I'm actually going to go back to the brick clay, select my box, and I'm going to zero it out. So on my location, 0, 0, and 100, so it's on the floor. Let's go with those same dimensions of 1,000 deep, 2,000 long, and we know that our character is roughly 200 high. This is where having our player peg would come in handy. So we want our ceiling height to be about 300, so we're going to also make this hollow so that we can be inside of it. Now that it's hollow, if we go inside, we can see we have materials on the inside and the outside. It's a hollow box for our house. So if our wall thickness is 10, then we have to count for this wall being 10 thick, that wall being 10 thick, the bottom and the top being 10. So what I want to do is set my Z height to 320. So this needs to be 160, which is half of 320. So it sits on the ground. Now if I hit play, I can't get in. What the hell? But if I hit escape and I fly inside here, I'm inside my house. I can right click anywhere on the floor, come down to here and select play from here. And now I'm inside my house. The inside height looks pretty good. So that's awesome. But we need a door. How the hell are we going to get in here? Well, shit, we got no door. Well, the first thing, I'm going to do a creative door frame. So I want my door frame to be made out of wood. So I'm going to select walnut and a box here. So now it's all made out of that wood material. I want it in the center of my house, so it's going to be 0 and 0, but that puts it all the way in the middle. So let's actually scroll it back out so we can actually work on it. Our wall thickness is 10 deep, so let's make our X in 20, and our height is already good at 200, but let's raise it up by 10. I'll probably our Z height, not there. Sorry, so we want this at 110. So it's just a hair above the ground. And we want to make it 120 wide. So we're giving us a little bit of room to work with. Now I'm going to bring this in here and let it overlap into my wall. But that's not really going to work. It's just a solid chunk. I can't get through there with my character. So let's go back in here and make this subtractive. And it just chopped a hole in my wall. I move it here. It's solid. Move it in a little bit. And now it's hollow. And the interior is the wood color. Well, it's not really what I want. So I realized that I should have kept this at a different color. See, we got a step height right there. We can always come in later and add in other stuff, but let's change our height to 105. Puts it flush there. And we can actually click on the sides here, which is going to give us the sides of our invisible box. And let's change it back to our clay or our brick. But I want to select all adjacent materials, hit this arrow, and there we go. We'll probably put something here anyway, but our materials don't line up. So let's actually, we want it to go to the left by just a smidge. So, nope, wrong direction. So we can sit there and line it up that way. We can line it up height-wise if we want to. We'll click on the individual face and then tell it which way you want it to go. So you can line up your patterns. So you always have the ability to correct your patterns in your geometries once you lay them down. Now let's actually move this one. Nope. Let's go back the other way. But let's go this way here. So now we have a doorway. We can actually walk in and out of our house. We can come back in and actually put a static mesh doorway in there if we want to. But this is our basic shell. What we need to do now is think about what we want for windows, window placements. We just want to make our interior walls, things like that if we want to. And let's get our interior set up using these BSP geometries. So that's our main door. Do we want a back door? Do we want to lay out the house a little bit differently? Okay, well let's how do we do this? We can actually, well, if we want to go through and make a second floor, then anywhere where we want an opening to get from the first floor to the second floor, we use the same method of doing a subtractive BSP to get us through. But if we want walls, we could set up our walls just by dragging. Well, I don't want that material, so it's easier to go ahead and select the material that you want for your interior walls. Say if you want walnut floor for your walls, you know, you can change whatever materials you want. In this case, you know, and it doesn't really matter if you decide you want to change your material later. This will come in handy because you'll be able to do that. So short term, let's put oak. So we have oak wooden walls. Might be ugly right now, but whatever. So our Y value is going to be left and right here. So let's change that to 10. You can make it as thick as you want to. To me, it doesn't really matter all that much for right now. But we want to make sure that we're going to get the correct height. So we want this to match our interior height, which is 320-ish. So let's try 300 on our Z. And doesn't quite reach. It's close, but it doesn't quite reach top and bottom. So let's make it 310. So now it reaches floor to ceiling. You don't want to use this transform at all. Like I said, if you want this wall to be at a specific thing, look at your transform locations as you drag it around. Let's put it at 250. So we have an entryway. When we come in the front door, is that going to be wide enough? Let's actually bring it a little bit closer. Just bring it to 200. So now, if you want symmetry, now whenever you get your wall the way you want it, you can just copy it and move it over. So let's actually make this 500. Or we can actually fill out the entire thing and just cut open a doorway. So let's actually do that. Let's make it all the way across here. So we know the interior should be 980. And then you want to zero it up. That's why we're operating off the 000 axis. Comes in quite handy. Now we can actually cut in the doorway or two doorways or whatever we want. But now if we want to copy this one, well, we know that this right here is our house. So call this one our house. This right here is our doorway, door hole. This brush here is our wall or our walk, because I can't frickin' spell. So now I can just, well, I have that one selected, Control C and Control V, and let's drag that over to, well, let's just go ahead and put that at 200 here manually, and there you go. So now if we hit play, we could walk in and see that we have our house with our basic opening cut here and two walls, but we need some holes in the walls to get through. So no worries. We can leave this selected as our wood. Grab us another box. Our wall thickness is actually, well, let's change this to subtractive. So we can make that as big or small as we want to. But we wanted to keep it at our 200 our height for our Z. And let's put it at, what, 205? No, 105. Yeah. and let's make it our X, which is going to be, if you can't remember which one's which, red here and red here is going to be the same, so that's our X. So we want our X to be 120, so we have a normal width to get through. And since we don't have this huge frickin' thing here, let's go with our Y value of, since the wall thickness is 10, let's make it 12, so it's just a little bit bigger. And we know that this value was 200, so we can try to line it up this way, or we can just go ahead and do this at 200. Where do we want our door opening? Let's put it at 200. Control C, Control V, copy and paste. Put it at 200. So now we have a way to get in. Now I'm not considering build the entire complete house this way. You can use this to build your basic system for your doorways, getting in and out of your rooms and so forth. But this will get us started. So now we have our basic room. We need some windows over here. And let's put 2 windows there, 2 windows there, 2 windows there. So again, now since we have the brick wall, let's go ahead and get our brick. Oh, another thing you can do here is this. Once you get your height correct and you want to make it blend with your floor, you can give it that brick texture. Just saying. So let's grab us another box, throw it in here. And we know that it's the same material as everything else. We'll change the floor material here in just a minute. But we want to go ahead and, do we want a 200 by 200 window? Sure we do. So let's make it in our red, which is X. Let's make it 20, and we'll leave it 200 by 200, make it subtractive, and stick it in here. So now we got a basic window. If you look at your measurements this way, let's put it at 400 so we can Control C and Control V, copy and paste, and let's put it at 800. So as you're naming these things, I know that these two are my windows. I can Control C and Control V so I can copy and paste, and as I can move these over, I can't see exactly where they are, but I can go back over here again and know that this is supposed to be at 800 and this one should be at 400. So now it's all symmetrical. Now if I want to copy all of these and put them on the back wall, I can just Control C, Control V, copy and paste, drag them over. And the cool thing about subtractives is you can see when they're sticking to the wall, because now you can see through the wall. Wow, I've had my new phone for over a week, and it's finally just giving me the battery low thing. I charged it for maybe a half hour. I charged it to full when I first got it, but then I've only had it on charge for about a half hour since I've had it, and now I just finally got the low battery warning. Alright, so this is, I don't know, it's a terrible house, but, you know, whatever. Let's change our floor texture, and let's give it a nice ceramic tile. And let's match these walls to match our wood. Now let's even brick. Whatever. This is a good enough house. To give you an example of how you can turn all of these BSP geometries that you use to create this house and to a single static mesh that you can use in your maps as a building piece. So this is just an example of how to turn multiples, all of these BSP geometries into one thing, that instead of doing this now, Control C, Control V, copy and paste, and put multiples of this, you're going to have a shitload of these box geometries to be your house. So we want to combine them all into a single static mesh. Before we do that, we need to make sure that we know that if we want this to be, if we want to build a second floor, later on, then we won't be able to do it, but we want to make some changes to this rooftop. We don't want it to just be a flat roof. And I'm going to do a basic roof. I'm not going to get carried away with building a full thing. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to grab another BSP Geometry. I want to go ahead and say, if I want this to be a different material later on, I'm going to make it a different material now before I make the rooftop here. Let's actually delete that one because it's not the material I want anyway. If I want to say this wall to be a different color later, it doesn't matter what you put on here now. You need to know that my floor, I want it to be, it's all one piece, so if I want to change it later, it needs to be a different material than everything else. My walls, interiors, are all going to be brick. They're going to match the exterior, and that's fine for what I want. But if I want my ceiling texture to be something different, then I need to give it another material now, even if it's not the material that I want to use. You want to go through and do that for everything here. Make sure these are all what you want, because once you create this as a static mesh, you're not going to be able to change that. So think ahead. If you want this to be a different material, I'm going to go ahead and make it a different material now, so that later on I'll have that ability. So I'm going to make a rooftop now, and even though I don't have the material that I want to use, I'm going to use this hex tile, drag a box in here. Terrible looking roof tiles. I'm going to go ahead and zero it out. I'm going to go ahead and drag it up here. This is going to be my roof. It's going to be half of my roof, but it'll be my roof. And we want to match the footprint and then a little bit more. So we know that we did 1,000 in the X. So let's do 1,200 in the X. So we have 100 overhang on each side. And let's do 2,200. No, not on the Z. Dumb ass. Well, we're going to want it about 400 anyway. Yeah, that'll be good. And then let's raise that up. That's how tall the peak of our house is. Let's actually drag that down to 300. You can see when that yellow line starts to disappear, it's intersecting with the one behind it. So we want the Y value to actually be 2,200. So it has overhang as well. We don't want as much overhang. Yes, this is not our final roof. Just bear with me. So that's going to give us our overhang. I'm actually going to cut it in half. So we know our 0 point is here, and we just made it 2,200, or actually 1,200 in our X. Let's cut that in half, because this is only going to be half of our roof. And now we want to move it over so that it's right there at the midpoint. Keep in mind, this is now 600. So if I move it to 300, that should put it in our halfway point. So it's perfectly half of our roof. And let's go ahead and make this into what we actually want. I'm going to go to Geometry Editing. Okay. Now that I've gone to that tab, I'm going to select this corner piece, hold down the Control key, and click on this one. So I have just these two, and I'm going to use my transform arrow, and I'm going to lower it down. And I just made it an angle. So let's see, let's move it down a little bit more. And there's the side of our roof. This is absolutely cheesy. You can take as much time as you need to create this. Well, I don't really want that much overhang. So while I have those two selected, I'm going to Control left click on this face, come over here, and Control left click on the bottom one here as well. So now I have all four of these selected, and now I can drag it back some. And that looks pretty good for my overhang. Not really, but you know, let's put it right there. So now I'm going to left click on this one. Actually, I don't need to do that, but I'm going to do it. Well, if I wanted to do something else here, if I want to finish off the last part of this, I can click on this face right here, click on extrude, don't show this again, and now that I'm in my extrude tool, I'm going to drag it out to there, and look what we did. We extended this to be double now. So here I can grab this and let's make sure we're on it. Grab that guy and that guy. And see, it didn't stretch the material, it just added more to the BSP geometry. And I'll bring it down to match the other side. Bring it down one more click. There we go. So there's our cheesy little roof. Now if we click back on this, we can click here and select all adjacent surfaces and display our materials, and there we go. Our really cheesy roof. And no, I didn't put any glass in because that's something you'll want to do later. Didn't put a door in just in case you want to make it move. Didn't put a door frame in, so you can build that separately. The windows, if you were to break them out, you'd be able to sneak in here. You do it just right, but you know, the collision on the character is what's causing us an issue. But that's the basics of the shell of the house. So now we've got all of these things right here. They're all different materials. We're all set to convert this. So I'm going to left click here and I'm going to left click here, so I have all of them selected. We already have our assets folder and our meshes folder, so that's prepared. So with all these selected, now let's look down here. Don't need to worry about this for right now, but if you look right here, there's a create static mesh. I'm going to click on that. It's going to bring up the window. I'm going to navigate to my meshes folder, and I'm going to give this a name of ugly underscore ass house. This is my ugly ass house. Create static mesh. It went ahead and converted everything into a static mesh, and there it is. So I can actually delete it if I want to. I can bring it back in here, but it's buried in the ground. So there's a couple things we're going to have to do to fix this, so that when we drop it into our map, it'll sit directly on the ground. So let's take a look at it. Double click on it. First off, before we go in there and look at it, let's actually look at it here on the map. Walk over to it. There's no collisions, and if we were to build lighting, it would not look good. So once we double click to go into it like this, why I said you needed to select your materials now is because here you have your material slots. If you want to change your outside wall, I don't like that color brick, so I can now select a different material, and there we go. So we can make our houses look a little bit different. Well, I really don't like the rooftop, so that hex tile, it's got to go. So let's change it to an ocean, or let's change it to worn walnut. That looks good. You need to have all these variables. Now the problem you're going to run into is you can't change the orientation of it. You're stuck with the orientation because you didn't change it beforehand. So that's a consideration you're going to have to think of. That's why initially I was just going to make this half of the roof and then flip it around and make the other half. But oil well. Lessons learned when you're creating your first BSP. Now the next thing you want to do is scroll down here to your general settings. Open up this tab. This defaults to 4. Change it to 64. Hit tab 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to bring you to light map coordinate index. Change that to 1 and save. So that's going to keep it to where it's actually whenever you build lighting. So now if I do build, it will actually show the lighting correctly. If you don't do that step, your house is going to be a nasty, ugly black color. Coffee. Alright, so once it's done building, we no longer have any collisions. Well, our lighting issues are taken care of, but we don't have collisions still. So that kind of sucks. And that's just one of the issues that we're going to have. There's two solutions for this. One is to export as a FBX, go into Blender, create your own custom collisions. There's two other methods, and one of them is not the best method to do, but if you're prototyping, it doesn't really matter all that much. You can come over here, and if you select your collision, your simple collision, there is none. And if you just try doing collision, even adding a any kind of simplified collisions, you can see that it's going to give the collision on the outside only and on the taper here. You're not going to be able to enter your house at all. Remove the collision from it. No matter which one that I apply to it, it's not going to let me get into my house now. So I'm just going to make sure that I remove the collisions. For now, this is a terrible way of doing things, but for prototyping, this will work. Use complex collision as simple. And now you have every asset of it, and facet of it, is now going to have collisions. You hit save, go in here and play. And then the next issue we need to work on is the fact that we can't get into our house. Technically, we can say screw it and just raise it up, and then we're fine. But I don't want to do that. Okay, I've got it selected. The ugly ass house is selected, and now I'm going to change my view here. Click on this arrow, not on this arrow, on the perspective, and I want to go to left or right or whatever. So now, as we're panning around, we got a wireframe of our house. We can see the ground level, which is the green line. Blue is our floor mesh, but we're worried about the green. So, let's see if I remember the correct key here. I'm going to scroll in to move in to where I can see the bottom, and I can see that green line. And I believe it was alternate middle mouse button. No. No. So just click the middle mouse button whenever you're on your arrow. Sorry, I'm just screwing this up left and right here. You're wanting to, I mean, if you just raise it up this way, get it to where it's in position. And now, middle mouse button, and I believe it was the alternate key, and now you scroll this, you're moving it down, you're holding the middle mouse button and the alternate key at the same time. So now you can line up the center point of where these two meet with the ground level. And that's going to be your pivot point now. So over here, away from the model, right click and go to pivot, set as pivot offset, and let's go ahead and save all. Go back here to perspective, and now we can see we should be on the ground. We still need to go down just a little bit more. So go back into our left or right side. Let's go ahead and move it down. And it's going past it, so let's change our snapping from 10 to 5 and see if it'll let us go ahead and do that now. Yeah, that should bring it to the ground level. And then let's go ahead and alternate, or I'm sorry, middle mouse button and alternate, and let's drag this back up to there. And then again, click somewhere away from everything else, pivot, set pivot offset, and save all. Go back to our perspective, and that should have, you see there's our pivot point now, is at 0, 0, 0 location. So if we come back over here and set this 0, 0, and 0, it's in the ground. So we want to save that pivot point. But we need to go ahead and get it back on the ground level. We need to come up 5 more. should be good there. So with it saved there, we're actually going to be able to save that pivot point. So when we put it back in there and plop it out, we can do it again. So now we can rotate our house, we can position it where we want to. And when we go to build our lighting again, we should have good lighting and we should have good collisions now. So as soon as we get done building those collisions, then we'll just walk to our house, check it out, and then we can take a quick break and come back for another video. So lighting's done. Let's hit play and let's look at our house. Our ugly ass house has collisions. It's dark inside because we don't have any lighting inside of our house other than the windows. Yes, it's absolutely ugly. Quick note here, if you want to build your own custom window glass, I would start out to make your windows match. Come back to your materials for your starter content. You have one called glass. Go back to your geometry, drag your box in here, and it's a glass material now. So now all you have to do is just size it up, build your custom window. And we had ours, was at what, 200 and 200, and it was set. There we go. If you want to build a custom window sills, that's fine too. But line up your windows, get it in position the same way you know where you want it to, just for cosmetics. We'll make it an RY. Just make it 5 so it's nice and thin. Now what I would do is I would save this. Once we have it in position, it's good. It doesn't matter. I mean, as long as we know that it's the right size for our window, what I would do is actually make sure that it's not overlapping. Because if it is overlapping, sometimes it will cause your materials on the side to actually go away. So just make sure you're in the right spot. Check the materials here. I'm sure it's actually wrong. So to kind of offset that a little bit, do it at 199. 199. So that you have just a little bit of room on either side. And when you do save this as a static mesh, I'm going to do the same thing and make sure I've got it selected. Create static mesh. Go to my assets. Meshes. I'm going to call this window. Again, this is not something I'm going to keep later on. Go to our mesh folder. We now have our house and we have our window. So if I want, I can actually delete that window. I can now spawn this into the map, set it up wherever I want to go, and we now have a window. Again, it does not have collisions on it, so let's go into it and let's go to collision. Let's add a box simplified collision and go to our general settings, 64, tab, and 1. Use tab 4 times, hit 1, save, boom. Now our window has collision to it. We can pop them in any of our window frames that we want to. Another trick you can do later on is you can actually take that same static mesh, and you can't do it now, but there is a plugin. Select your plugin, and APX Destruction. You can enable this plugin, and I'm not going to do it right now, but you can enable that plugin, and then you can convert that window into a destructible mesh. And then you can assign the damage thresholds and everything else to it, and you've just made your own custom destructible window that if whenever you're shooting and playing your game, you can now, I'm like, okay, well, you can't shoot me, I'm behind this window, bang bang, shoot the glass shatters, falls out, and now it's gone. You can actually walk through. So that's how you can make your own custom static mesh windows, convert them into a destructible mesh, and then be able to destroy them. You can create your own static mesh houses, buildings, props. Like I said, with your BSP geometry, you can set it in here, and it's got that. But if you want to have a material right off the bat, you select the material, chrome, and let's create a box. We can go into our geometry editing mode. I can grab just one if I want to and change that. I can grab 2 of them at a time, 3 of them at a time, whatever. And you can make your own custom whatevers. And you can click on a face, click on extrude, stretch it out, and now you've added another face to it. And let's do it one more time. And let's go ahead and go back to our edit mode. And now I'm going to grab this pin, and I'm going to drag it down. And, wow, whatever, let's grab this pin, let's throw it up. And let's grab this pin, and you could do, like, whatever you want. I mean, I just grabbed a line by mistake there. It allowed me to grab both of those at the same time that were connected by that line. So if I wanted to do the same thing here and click on this line, or that face, if you get a line between two, you can sometimes just manipulate that. What if you want to do this one? If you want to move it this way, move it back this way. You can make your own custom rocks or whatever, you know. So that's the fun of playing around BSP geometries. You can make your own custom static meshes. You can make your own whatever you need and go from there. And oops, I just deleted. So what happens if I delete some of it? If you look at it, then, well, it's just deleted. You're left with whatever you were doing. Coolness. Okay, that's BSP Geometries. Let's go ahead and do a quick build and let's get out of here. You guys got suggestions for the basic training series of videos, and I will keep them at the 1 hour length or no longer, which we're at 106 right now. I'll go ahead and I'll take a break for a little bit and we'll come back, and if we want, we'll do another one. Whether it's using the starter content to create houses that we can use as prefabs instead of using the BSP geometries. I think that's what we'll do, is we'll go that route. So I'm actually going to take my ugly ass house in my window and bye bye, gone. Alright, so we'll do that. We'll work with the architecture in the next one, and we'll build some prototype housing that we can use for our levels, and we can start laying out a quick map. And then we'll turn this, as we're progressing with this series of basic training, we could do whatever. We could turn this into a shooter game. We can do whatever with it we want to. So, guys, keep up with me on Discord. Let me know in comments here also if you want this series to continue. I start doing these series. If I don't get any interest, I quit doing them. So, we'll pick up here in about 15 minutes using the starter content, and we'll start laying down some houses with them and use them as our creating a separate static mesh out of multiple static meshes to create our template houses to populate an entire town with. Alright guys, we'll see you in the next video.